Hey guys, thanks for joining me for an episode of Learn to Play Games. My name is Lance, and today we're going to take a look at Pandemonium. This is a brand new game by Game Forger. It is a 1 to 5 player game that takes roughly an hour and a half to 3 hours to play, and it is either a fully cooperative game where all the players are working together, or it can also be played as a semi-cooperative game. Really depends on the play style of your group, or how you want to approach it, or depending upon the scenario you've chosen to play as well. So in the game itself, this is a classic horror movie in a box. They pulled a ton of references from both the monsters you guys are going to be facing to the heroes that you're playing from classic horror movies, science fiction, action, adventure movies. So you're going to see a lot of things that you're familiar with from all kinds of different genres in this game. And you're going to be playing a group of these survivors or heroes sent in to do different things based on the scenario you've chosen. Some of the scenarios will have you going after a boss or trying to find certain objectives to meet different things or do different things to basically get out of these horrific environments. During this process, you're going to be fighting monsters, gaining souls that you can use to level up your characters and get new abilities. Some of your characters will also die, which will then become cursed. You guys can do combo attacks and all kinds of different things. And in the end, some players will choose to leave these environments once the objectives have been met. And they can also choose to save their own hides and leave players behind, in which case then some players will win and some players will lose. So other than that, normally I also give my opinions on games, but this particular one I was hired to do this video for you guys, so I won't be giving my opinions, but on the other side I am working with the creators on this video, so if everything that's presented in this video is accurate as far as the rules are concerned, and if you guys have any questions, please go ahead and leave those in the comments section below, and I'll pass those along to the creators to get answers for you guys as well. So let's go ahead and head to the table, and I'll teach you guys how to play. The first thing we're going to look at today are the dice. So there are 3 different dice included in the set. You have a D12, which you'll use to summon monsters and reference the chart, as you guys can see here. You're also going to have 6 combat dice, which you're going to use to resolve combat results or other things. And the dice have 3 slashes on them, which are successes, and 3 skulls, which are misses. Finally, you have a D6 dice, which is used as the evil dice and to resolve dashes and other things, as you guys will see. Now, some of you may also have the Kickstarter exclusive dice, or they may release it later on to purchase. These dice, or you'll use one of these dice to represent the evil dice, and it will have its different effects on it for the evil turn, as you guys can see on the chart. But otherwise, you can just use the D6 dice to represent that. There are a number of different decks of cards included in the game, and I'm going to take you guys through each one of these decks now. I'm also going to cover these in more detail later on in the video. So the first deck we have are the dimensional cards, which when a player enters a portal, they must resolve a dimensional card in order to successfully use the portal. So they'll flip over a card, and if they can resolve the effects at the bottom of the card successfully, then they will receive the rewards on the top of the card and be able to use the portal. Then we have combo cards, which when a player or players enter a combo, they will draw one of these cards and choose one of the values to try to resolve. If the combo deck runs out, it will not be reshuffled and the players will not be able to use combos anymore in this game. Then we have pact cards, which when a player dies, they must draw one of these cards and keep it secret from all their players. At some point during the game, they will resolve the effects of the card, if they're able to, and they will receive the rewards listed on the card when that happens. If at the end of the game a player has a pact card and they're not able to resolve or haven't resolved the effects by the time the game ends, then they will automatically lose even if the players have met the other conditions for successfully completing the mission. Then we have ally cards, which the ally deck will be comprised of all the different survivors in the game, and will have a good version and a evil version of each survivor in that deck. With the good survivors, they will have a number of action points that they will be able to use during their turn, and any effects that they have. Good allies can only move, open and close doors and windows, and perform their special abilities. For the evil allies, they work just like any other monster. They will have the number of hit points on the top corner here, their fury or attack value or number of damage they do when they attack, their mobility, and their terror value, as well as any special abilities that they have at the bottom of their card. The event deck is broken into two different types of cards. You have evil events, which will have the red skull and must be resolved immediately, which their effects are in the bottom of the card, and then they'll be discarded. Or good events, which can be held on to used at a later point in the game, and their effects are listed on the bottom of the card. And these are single use as well, so when a player uses a good event, they will discard it after they've used it, and these will not count against a player's inventory. Then we have the skill trees. There are 4 different skill tree cards that you can acquire. When a player defeats a monster for the first time, they will choose one of these skill trees to start working on, and we're going to go into more detail on these later as well. Then we have the item cards, which there are 2 different types of items in the game. You have your different items that will have their effects on the bottom of the card, and you have weapon cards, which there are 4 different icons listed on the top of the weapon. We have the amount of damage the weapon does, its difficulty, which means the number of successes that you must roll in a combat roll in order for the weapon to do its damage. Then we have the number of hands that that weapon will require to wield, and the range of that weapon. And any best benefits or special abilities that weapon has will be listed on the bottom of the card as well. Moving over to the tiles, I'm going to take you guys through all the different features. So each tile is broken into a number of different spaces, which are separated by one of 2 different types of lines. The first one are the 2 little white lines with a little bit of a transparency between them, and that just separates one space from another. Characters and enemies are able to move through those lines as they move through the different spaces. Then we have the solid white lines, which are basically considered walls or other impassable terrain where players and enemies cannot move through them unless a special rule says otherwise. Then we have the different doors that are on the tiles. Those start out the game closed, but players can spend actions or enemies to open those doorways, in which case you'll place an open door token. Windows work a little bit differently. Windows can only be opened from the side the arrow is pointing out of. So windows can only be opened from, say, the inside of a building, but never opened from the outside of a building. And again, the tokens will be placed when you open a window. Now, windows and doorways can also be broken, in which case you'll use the broken side of the token. And again, as we go through these different tiles, each of these separate areas is considered one space. So we have one big space here. This L shape here is one space, which is separated from this tile's space here. So this is one space, and that is a separate space there. The last 2 tiles we need to cover before moving into setup are the game round tile and the generator tile. So each game of Pandemonium is played over 8 rounds unless the scenario you've chosen says otherwise, which is going to consist of 3-day rounds and 5-night rounds. And these rounds will work basically the same way, but the night rounds are going to add a couple additional features to the game, or those rounds, which I'm going to cover a little bit later. Now, unless the scenario specifies otherwise, you'll start on the number 1 space, and each round of the game is going to consist of 2 phases. The characters phase, where all the players are going to activate their characters, and then the creature phase, where all the creatures are going to activate and respond to the characters. Then we have the generator tile, which each scenario is going to tell you where to place the generator token, and if a character is on the same space as the generator token, they can attempt to start the generator. In order to do that, they're going to roll the d6 die. If they roll a 1 or a 6, that is going to be a failed attempt, and they will waste that action. If they roll the 6, they're also going to spawn a creature in that space. Now, if they roll a 2 through 5 result on the dice, or the die, then they will start the generator and place that token on one of whatever number they've rolled. Each round that the token is going to move down, and each round the generator is working will provide illumination to all of the tiles. And this is going to have a dramatic effect during the night rounds, as you guys will see. Now this tile is also going to keep track of the 2 vehicles' hit points if your scenario has the vehicle, and each vehicle has a number of slots that they can hold characters in. So like the boat only can hold 2 characters, where the truck can hold 4. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to choose a character or characters they'd like to play as and will receive their dashboards. They're also going to receive 2 tokens. One is the health token, which will go on the top of the health bar, and the other side of that token is the fear token, which will go on the bottom of the fear track. They're also going to receive the miniature that goes along with their character they've chosen. And let's go ahead and take a look at a breakdown of the board. So like I said, you have the health track on one side, and the fear track on the other. As characters gain fear, they're also going to receive negatives to their different stats, and if they ever reach the panic spot, then they're going to resolve panic, which we will cover a little bit later in the video. Then we have the 5 stats going across the top. The first one is their combat rating, which is the number of combat dice they'll roll when making an attack. Their defensive rating, which is the number of combat dice they'll roll when making a defense. Their agility, which will denote when they will take their turn during the character's turn. The number of action points that they will have, or the number of actions they will be able to do during their turn. And their will rating, which is going to help them combat their fear. Then each character also has a special ability, which for the hero it says move among creatures without losing life. Then we have the character's flavor text, and their 2 spots for their hand, single hand weapons or dual hand weapon. And on the side, you'll also store the character's backpack items. There is no slot for that. And then we also have slots for the 2 different tokens that will add a bonus to their combat and defensive abilities if they get those tokens, which each scenario will have those in different areas. For board setup, it's very easy. First, you'll choose the scenario you'd like to play. So we're going to set up for Chapter 1, the Escape. You're going to lay out your different tiles according to the map, as you guys can see here on the side. And then you're going to put out all the different portals. Go ahead and shuffle up and place out all the different card decks as well. So we have the item cards, the event deck, your combo deck, the pact cards, and your dimensional cards, and the ally deck. Go ahead and place out the round counter. And then off screen, I'm also going to have the generator board. Go ahead and place the token based on the scenario. So we're playing the first scenario and it doesn't say, so we're going to go ahead and place it in the number 1 slot for our round counter. Go ahead and place out your hero models in their starting space, as well as any other creatures or monsters that need to be placed. So we have the Sharknator and the Dimensional God. Finally, we're going to go ahead and spawn creatures in the spawn points according to the starting rules, which states that you're going to spawn 1 creature in each of the portals except for the tile that the characters are starting on. So as you guys can see on this chart here, we're going to go ahead and roll to determine which creatures we have. And you'll use the D12 for that. So we have a Nightmare, Demons, another Nightmare, the last thing you're also going to want to put out is all your different tokens. So I have a nice little divider set up for my different doors and windows, the search tokens, and my barricades and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to keep this off screen as well, but I will have that as well. And you can pick these up at Walmart. They're just in the hobby and craft section if you guys like those. So I'd like to go into a little bit more detail now about summoning creatures. So as you guys already saw, to summon creatures, you're going to use the purple D12 die and refer to the chart, as you guys can see here. Now, if a creature is rolled and no further minis are available, you're going to go ahead and roll again until you summon an available creature. And like you guys saw already, creatures spawn at certain times in the game. So during the first day rounds, a creature appears at each portal on each map tile which is not occupied by characters. During the first night round, a creature will appear in each portal on the board. And in any other rounds, a creature appears on each portal of each map tile where there is at least 1 character. Now, when players roll the evil die, if a creature is summoned due to that effect, it will appear in a portal located on a map tile where there is the least amount of activity. And if multiple options, a player will choose. And we're going to cover activity a little bit later on in this video. And the maximum number of monsters in a game is 4 per character. So any creatures above that will just add 1 fear point to all characters instead of appearing on the board. So in our game, with us playing 2 characters, the maximum number of creatures that can be on the board at any time is 8. And if you would summon any more than that, then each character would take a fear point moved up on their fear track instead. Normally, Pandemonium is played over 8 rounds. During each round, it is broken into 2 phases, the player phase and the creature phase. Before we move into each round, there's a little sequence of things that must be resolved. So first, based on the round it is, you're going to spawn creatures on the portals of the board. So during setup, we already took care of this, and since it was a day round, the first day round, you're going to spawn creatures in each of the portals except for any portals that are on the tile where the characters start. Now this sequence is different during night rounds, and there's also an additional thing. If it is a night round, then you're also going to roll the evil die once. If the generator is on, you're also going to move the energy token 1 space. From here, then, we're ready to move into the character's turn. So during the character's turn, you're going to look at each character, and the character that has the highest agility is going to be the first one to go. So with us, we have the Huntress that has an agility of 6, and our hero has an agility of 4. So our Huntress will be the first one to go, and she'll get to perform a number of actions based on the number of actions that she has. So the Huntress has 4 actions, and she can choose from this list of actions here, as you guys can see. So we're going to go ahead and take you through each of these different actions and break it down and show you how it works. The first action we're going to look at is the movement action. For each action point you spend, you can move 1 space in an orthogonal direction. Diagonal movement is not allowed. So we're going to take a look at this. So with the Huntress here, she can spend 1 action point to move to this space here, which covers this whole section, or one point to move to this space here, which covers that whole section. And then from there, she could spend an additional point to move here if she wanted to, or anywhere around the board, as long as she's following the guidelines for the different spaces. So for example, she could not move through this space because there's a closed window here, and you can only open the window from the other side, and the rest of this is impassable. The dash action is the only action in the game which does not cost the character an action point. Characters can dash through doors and windows in any direction, and it is not possible to dash between spaces which do not have doors and windows. So let's look at some examples of this. So we have our Huntress here, and she has a window here. Normally you can only go through the window on this side, but since she's going to do a dash action, she can go through on the other side. So in order to do that, she's going to simply move through it, and when she does, she's going to lose 1 health for busting through the window, and then she'll replace that with a broken window token. Now she did not spend any actions to do that, so she still has 4 action points remaining. So again, she could choose to do a dash action to bust through that door, and again she would replace that with a broken door token, and doors are going to cost her 2 health points. And again, she still has her 4 actions remaining. Now the last thing is the barricade. If she was in here, she could still dash through the barricade, in which case the barricade is destroyed and removed, the door token is replaced, and she would still lose 2 health points. Now, if a door or window is already opened, and she dashes through it, it only is going to cost her 1 health point, and again, that is going to be replaced with a broken token. The run action costs 1 action point and can only be done once per turn. The player is going to roll the d6 die, and based on the result, they can move up to that number of spaces. If they roll a 1, the character is going to stumble instead and loses the action of running and cannot repeat it this turn. Otherwise, the run action cannot be interrupted by any other action. The one exception to this is the dash. As we already talked about, a character can dash during a run action. So let's look at an example of this. We're going to go ahead and roll a die. And we rolled a 5, so we can move up to 5 spaces, again, only in orthogonal directions, and we can choose to do dash actions in between those actions, but again, we're going to take damage based on what we crashed through. So we're going to go ahead and move our Huntress down here for 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to hold off there, so we don't have to move up to our full movement. Opening and closing doors and windows is also going to cost us 1 action point. So for our Huntress here, let's say that she's in the building and she spends 1 of her action points to open the door. So we'll replace that with an open door token, and then say she moves out, she can spend another action if she wants to close the door, in which case then she simply removes the token again. And the same goes for windows. You could spend an action to open a window, move out, and then you could always choose to close that window again. And this is going to have significance later on when we activate the creatures, as you guys will see. To raise or lower a barricade costs 1 action point. Players can add a barricade to any door or window in a space in which they are in. When a barricade is removed from the board, the door or window it is covering is broken. Each door or window can only have 1 barricade at any one time. And any creature attempting to cross a barricade will automatically be stunned, and the barricade will be destroyed and removed, leaving the broken door or window. So let's go ahead and say our Huntress is in here. She can spend 1 action point to place up a barricade either on the door or window. So let's go ahead and do that. And then she could also choose to spend an action to remove that, in which case then the door or window will be broken. Now there is one other type of barricade, which are the evil barricades. With those, a character must attack and deal 9 or more damage to destroy it, in which case at that point you're going to replace it with a broken window or door token of its type. A new creature is also going to appear on the space closest to the attacking character. So it would go onto this space here, and any creature or boss can cross an evil barricade without losing mobility points. Set a trap costs 1 action point. Traps are retained by discarding a weapon or item with which the character is equipped in his inventory, which is not an action. Trap tokens can be stored on top of the character board until the point the character wishes to use them. Each character can hold up to 3 traps. Traps are placed in spaces where characters are located, and placing a trap token is considered 1 action. Any creature entering a space with a trap will automatically be stunned, place its model flat, and end its turn, and remove the trap token. So our Huntress here, let's go ahead and say during her turn that she has the Acid, which this item says place 2 traps on a space where you use it. It is a 1-use only item. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and discard this, and we're going to go ahead and place 2 trap tokens on our space, which costs an action in order to do that. And then she's going to go ahead and move away. Now during the creature's turn, let's say the creature moves in, he is going to remove 1 trap, and he will be stunned and cannot perform any additional actions during that creature's turn. The Reinforce action costs 1 action point. Characters can use 1 action to gain 1+1 defense during creature turn. This can only be done once per turn. When they do this, they'll spend 1 action and they'll gain the +1 defense token. And this will be removed before the beginning of the next round. An Explore action costs 1 action point. When exploring, the player is going to pick up an item card and place it in their inventory, or make room by discarding that card or another card. From there, then, they're also going to place an Explore token in their space. If a space already has an Explore token, then the player is not allowed to search that space again. And all Explore tokens are going to be removed from the board during the first night round. So let's look at an example of this. We're going to go ahead and say that our Huntress here is going to explore this space. So she'll place an Explore token and draw the top card of the item deck. So she found a sawed-off shotgun. So now she can place this either in one of her hand slots to equip it, or she can place it off into her inventory if she has room. Otherwise, she must discard that card or another card to make room for it. For 1 action point, a player can enter a portal, and then they will draw a dimensional card. If they can successfully complete that dimensional card, then they will get the rewards that are listed on the card and will be able to move to any other portal on the map. If they fail, then they're going to stay in the same place. They will lose 1 life, and a new creature will be spawned in their space. And one other important thing to remember about challenges is that they are all going to take place in another dimension. So any creatures that are spawned or movement that needs to be done or anything else is not going to happen on the physical board. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example of this. We have the Huntress here, and she's going to go ahead and spend 1 action to move into the portal. At that point, she's going to draw a dimensional card. So we've drawn the Doomed Planet, as you guys can see. And in order to resolve this, it says that we're going to summon 1 creature, and if it frightens you, you will fail the test. So let's go ahead and roll the d12 and see what we get. So we get an 11. So the 11 is the Whisperers, as you guys can see, and their terror value is a 3. So their terror value and our will is equal. So at this point, we have passed the test because their terror must be higher than ours to fail. So let's say, for example, that we would have failed the test. We would not increase this because it is a dimensional test, and it doesn't actually affect the physical world. So since we passed, we're going to receive 3 soul gems, and we'll receive 1 point on our skill track, which I'm going to show you guys a little bit later. Other than that, then our Huntress here can move to any other portal on the map. If several characters are in the same space, the active player can spend one of his action points to initiate a trade or exchange of the item cards in their respective inventories. An exchange can include as many item cards as the players want, and it does not have to be fair as long as the players agree on it. Event, ally, and pact cards can never be exchanged. So let's look at an example of this. We have the Huntress and the hero in the same space, and she's going to go ahead and spend one of her actions to initiate an exchange with the hero. And she's going to go ahead and give him the shotgun, as he has a little bit easier time using it, and he's also going to give her the light, as this is also an item card. Now, she does have an ally and event card, but those are not allowed to be exchanged, so she must keep those. Some scenarios will have the reanimate action that a player can perform. In these scenarios, when a character dies, he will keep his cards and tokens, but will lose his skill tree. He will also lay down his mini and will remain in that space until another player enters the space and performs a reanimate action. When a character is reanimated, he's going to stand back up and will receive life equal to his will and will place his fear token at the 0 mark. If the reanimated character has not played this turn, he may do so after all their players have gone. Otherwise, he will wait until the next turn. The player who reanimates a companion will get 1 soul and will get to improve his skill tree by 1 point, which we're going to cover in a little bit. A player that is in the same space as a dead good ally can also spend 1 action point to loot the ally's body. When he does this, he will receive 3 item cards and 1 soul, and then the ally will be discarded from play. A player that is in the same space as a token that's on the board can also spend an action point to either interact with that token, depending upon the token that it is, or with some tokens they can also spend an action point to pick them up and add them to their inventory, such as the book, which will add +1 defense to that character when they hold it. The last couple actions that our character can perform are combat actions. So the first of these is the attack action. This costs 1 action point to perform, and in order to perform an attack action, the character must have a weapon equipped. From there, then, the character must have the range based on the weapon they're using. So let's go over the stats of the weapons real quick again. So we have the amount of damage a weapon does, the difficulty of using the weapon, or the number of hits a character must roll in order to successfully do damage based on the weapon you're using, the number of hands that weapon must have equipped to use, and the range of the weapon. So this one is a ranged 1, so our character must be in the same space as an enemy to use it. From here, we're going to go ahead and roll the dice, so we get 2 combat dice, plus any additional dice from anything else, which we don't have anything right now. From there, then we're going to go ahead and roll the dice and see how many hits we can roll. Alright, so we got 1 hit, and our special ability on our character says that we can re-roll 1 dice per roll, so we're going to go ahead and give this another roll. And we got 2 hits. Anytime you have more than 1 dice that is rolled and you have 100% success, then that is a critical success, and you'll get to do 1 additional damage. So we do 9 damage plus 1 for each successful dice, so that's 10, 11, plus 1 for the critical success. So we do 12 points of damage to our cultists, and we're going to check on the board, as you guys can see here. And the cultists' hit points is 10 points. So we've managed to kill him. Now, there's a couple of important things to note with this. If the total damage is equal to or greater than the enemy's life, the enemy is going to be killed. Otherwise, no damage is dealt, so we must kill him outright. Only 1 creature can be killed with each attack unless a card or combo says otherwise, which we're going to cover combos in a minute. So let's go ahead and take a look at the cultist's special effect, which says when dying, a new ally appears in their space. Pick an ally card. So we're going to go ahead and draw the top ally card from the deck, and it is Mother, so that is a good ally, so we're going to add her figure to our space, and the Huntress will gain control of her. There's a couple other things real quick. So killing 1 or more creatures in an attack is going to improve a character's skill tree by 1 point. It doesn't matter how many monsters you kill. You can only improve it by 1 point for each successful attack that kills a monster. And we're going to cover skill trees in just a couple minutes, but basically, if you don't have one, you get to draw a new one. of your choice. Otherwise, you can improve the one you currently have by 1 point. And like I said before, any roll of more than one dice that results in 100% hits is considered a critical hit and adds +1 damage. The last type of combat action our character can perform is the combo attack. A character can launch a combo attack alone, and by doing so they will be able to attack one additional monster. If more characters are in the space, they can also choose to participate in the combo attack, and if they do, all characters must have a weapon equipped. From here, let's go ahead and flip over the top card of the combo deck and see how this works. So there are 3 different colors on this combo. When a combo is flipped, the players or player must collectively choose which one of the combos they're going to try to perform. The top combo, or the green section, is going to be the most difficult, but will also give you the best rewards. The middle section is a little bit of an easier combo for you, but its rewards aren't quite as good. And finally, if you fail the combo, each player involved in the combo will suffer the penalties at the bottom of the combo. And each section is going to have a number of successes that the character must roll in order to complete that, and you must choose which one you're going after before rolling any dice. So for example, if both of our characters were involved in this combo and we chose to go after the green section, we would need 4 successes, but for each character that's involved, it's going to add 1 additional success to that beyond the first character. So we would need a total of 5 successes with the 2 characters. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. We're going to go ahead and say that it is our hero's turn, and so he's going to move over here. So he's going to move once through the window, and then he's going to move into there, and then we're going to do a combo attack. So this is our combo card, and we're not going to go crazy with it as we're only rolling 5 dice cumulatively between the 2 of us. So we're going to go with the middle combo. So we're going to need 3 successes between the 2 of us. So our Huntress is going to start out with her 2 dice, and our hero will get 3. So she rolled no successes, but she does get to reroll 1. So she does get 1 success off of the reroll. And our hero is going to roll his, and he rolls 2 successes and a miss. So we have gotten 3 successes between the 2 of us, so we get to add our combo's effects, and then we're going to add up all of our damage. So she's going to do 9 plus 1 for her success, and he does 5 plus 2 for his successes. So we have 17 total damage, plus our damage from this, which is plus 5. So that'll bump us up to 22 points of damage. So we're going to apply that to each of the monsters in the space with us of our choosing, if there was more than we could attack. But with our combo attack, it lets us attack 1 additional monster per character that's in there, plus our original character, so we can hit all 3 of these guys, and we're going to do 22 points of damage to each one. So all 3 of them are going to die, as the cultist's hit points is 10, and we have the psycho at 16 and the demon at 13. So all 3 of them are going to die, and so we're going to resolve their dying effects for each one of them. So with the possessed, like we said, we're going to draw a ally card. So we have Mother, and this is the good version, so she'll come out with us. Then we're going to go ahead and do the demon next. And with the demon, it says, when dying, a new portal appears in their space. So we're going to add a portal to this space. And then finally, the psycho. It says, when dying, they hurt their attacker, who loses 1 life point. So since both of us were attacking, we're both going to lose a life point there. And then he is going to be eliminated. And from here, then each one of them will drop a soul. And then our attacking player will be the one that will receive those. So our hero will get the souls, and he can improve his skill tree by 1 point. Even though we've killed multiple monsters, he can only improve his skill tree by 1 point. The last thing to keep in mind is that when the combo deck runs out, it will not be reshuffled. So during the game, players must be selective about when they use combo attacks. As the combo deck only has 12 cards in it, once those are gone, then the players are not allowed to perform combo attacks anymore this game. Now that I've taken you guys through all the different actions that our characters can perform during their turn, I'd like to take a look at some of the other things that are going to affect our characters. So the first is souls. So each character can collect a maximum of 5 souls, which are obtained by killing monsters, looting dead allies, fulfilling pacts, and overcoming dimensional cards. Souls are going to be kind of like currency, and they can be used, as you guys can see here on this chart. At the cost of 1 soul, you can recover 1 life point, or you can recover 1 fear point. Or once per turn, you can spend 2 souls to get a +1 to your attack, defense, or action abilities on the top of your card. If a character takes damage, they can also choose to spend a soul instead of taking that damage, 1 soul per damage prevented. And you must spend souls if the damage you take would reduce you to 0 life, which means that you cannot die until you are out of souls. And any character can automatically collect any soul in their space during their turn unless they are already at their max souls. Skill trees are the ways that our characters are going to improve their stats and abilities throughout the game. So there are 4 different types of skill trees. We have Corruption, Illumination, Retribution, and Survival. These first 3 here are permanent effects and will last as long as you have those skill trees and those skills unlocked, where the Survival one are instant effects. So as soon as you get a token on one of these, you will get the effects, and that is the only time you'll receive those effects. So once a player has chosen one, he cannot change it nor select another until he has either completed the current skill tree or died. Skill trees are going to be improved in the following situations. Killing 1 or more creatures in an attack during your turn will get you 1 point. Fulfilling a pact card will get you a number of points as shown on the card. And meeting a challenge of a dimensional card will also get you a number of points as shown on that card. And reanimating a character will get you 1 point. Even if a character kills several monsters in an attack, he only will receive 1 point. And once a player completes all 6 spaces of a skill card, they can choose another to start working on. When a character dies, all skill trees are lost and must be discarded. So there's a certain sequence as our player gains skills on these cards that they're going to be filled. So I'm going to use soul tokens to mark this, as the game does not come with any tokens to be able to identify which ones you've selected. So you're always going to start from the far ends of the card and work your way over. The first skill that you acquire is always going to be the one on the very far side. So for Corruption, it is going to be -1 difficulty to all of the character's equipped weapons. And all of these abilities are outlined on page 10 of the rulebook. From here, then we will have a choice. These different skills are numbered in the rulebook as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I'm going to reference that as we work through this. So once we have our first skill selected and we receive another skill point, we must choose to either do skills 2 or 3. So I'm going to go ahead and select this one up here, which is skill 2, which is +1 attack. The character gets +1 attack point. From here, if we get another one, we would choose between 4 and 3. So let's go ahead and say that we do 4, which is going to be +1 weapon. The character can equip 1 additional weapon, or 1 or 2-handed, even if he doesn't have inventory slots available. At this point, we can never choose 6 until our other ones are all completed, and so we must go with number 3 first before doing number 5. And then after that, then we can do number 6. And at that point, then we've completed our skill tree, and if we receive another point, then we can choose another skill tree to start working on. Fear is going to have a negative impact on players, and it's going to be kept track of on the fear track on the side of the player's board, and it will be increased by 1 point each time the character begins his turn in a dark area, which we're going to cover dark areas and nighttime effects a little bit later, or when a creature triggers their fear by attacking. When a character's fear token reaches the 5th space, they're going to start panicking, and while a character is panicking, he cannot perform any action and must stop the panic. To stop, the character is going to roll 1 of the combat dice and must roll a success. For each failure that they roll, they are going to lose 1 life point and must continue rolling the dice until they roll a success. Once they do, then they are going to drop their fear back down 1 point. In addition, if a character who is in panic has fear triggered at any time during the round, he must subtract 1 life point for each fear point he receives. And a character in panic at the beginning of his turn must first check to see if he receives any additional fear points before trying to stop the panic. Characters are going to die when their life point gauge reaches the very bottom of the track. At that point, they're going to discard all of their cards, and they're also going to leave any equipped tokens in their space. So with the Huntress here, she was able to pick up the book, so that is going to be discarded back onto her space, and then she's going to lose all of her equipment cards, as well as she's going to discard any skill trees that she has or has been working on. At this point, now she's going to reset her life gauge to the max and the fear gauge to 0. She's also going to get to take a new item card. So we have the torch, so that's going to go in her inventory. And she will receive a packed card. So with packed cards, they are always going to be kept hidden from other players, and their effects must be resolved as soon as the game allows, whether it's on your turn or another player's turn. When that happens, when it is resolved, then the player will receive the rewards that are listed on the card. And at the end of the game, if a player still has an uncompleted packed card, then they are cursed and will fail the mission even if their party succeeds in meeting their goals. You're also going to move your mini to a portal of your choice on the board, and you're going to remain entombed in that space. So with our example here, she would move up here, as that's the only portal. At the beginning of each round, all entombed characters are good to act as normal. And the one exception to this is if a character dies during a player's turn and has not yet played his turn, he can do so when it is his turn to play. Same for if a character dies during his turn and has remaining actions. He can continue playing from the portal where he decides to appear. Every character in the game has an evil and good version of them as an ally card. And the ally cards can be pulled by either using the radio, the telephone, or special cards which will allow it, or effects from monsters. When an ally is pulled, you're going to place their miniature in their space, and if an ally whose character is already present, so if another player is already playing a character and their ally is pulled, whether it is the good or evil version, you're going to discard that and pull again. Alternatively, you can simply remove each player's ally cards from the ally deck at the beginning of the game. Now, if there is a good ally in play and their evil version is pulled, you're going to change it over to the evil. And the same goes true for evil side. If the evil side is present on the playing field and the good version is pulled, they will convert over to good. Now, good allies can only move, open and close doors and windows, and perform their special abilities. They are going to add +1 hit to any attack by the players in the same space, including combos. Good allies have 1 life point and no defense, so if attacked, they will die. Any dead good ally's body can be looted by a player, which gives 3 item cards and 1 soul, after which the ally's miniature is removed from the board. A good ally is going to be controlled by the player that called them, and that player can choose to move the ally before or after his main character, but always within his turn. Now, bad allies are going to act the same as the rest of the creatures. They are the last to move and don't have perception values. They will move towards the closest character, and in case of ties, the slowest. At the end of each player's turn, after he's resolved all of his actions, if there is no creature, ally, or other character in his space, he must draw and resolve an event card. There are 2 different types of event cards. You have negative event cards, which are going to have the little negative symbol on them, which some of the event cards will also have some illustration on it as well, but will also tell you if it is a negative event. With negative event cards, they must be resolved immediately, and each event is going to have the name at the top of it, some flavor text, and at the bottom is what you need to resolve. Now, with positive events, which are events without the negative symbol on them, those events can be saved and used at a later point. Event cards do not take up space in a player's inventory and cannot be exchanged with other players. At the beginning of the creature's turn, any fallen creatures which were stunned from the previous round will get up and be able to move and attack as normal. Keep in mind with this, what it means is not the player's turn which was just done, but the round before that. is when they're referring to. So if a player had just stunned a monster during their turn, that monster will not be able to get back up and act this turn. From here, then, the creatures are going to move in order of their agility, followed by the evil allies, and finally any bosses that are on the stage. Also keep in mind that if there are multiple creatures of the same type, the creatures will move in a specific order. First, the creature that is closest to the characters, and then if there is a tie, it will be the player's choice to decide the order in which those creatures are going to activate. There's a strict set of rules that creatures must follow when performing a move. So we're going to go through these first, and then I'll show you guys some examples. So first off, creatures cannot pass through solid walls, and they cannot cross windows unless they are open or broken. Creatures can pass through doors, but they will lose a movement point using it to open them unless their ability states otherwise. Creatures move up to their movement value, and if they reach a character within that, then they will stop and attack that character, and then their turn will end immediately. When a creature begins its movement, it's first going to check its perception to see if it can perceive any characters. In order to check a creature's perception, it's going to work a lot like movement and will follow the same guidelines. So everything is done in orthogonal directions. It cannot go through solid walls or closed windows. So let's go ahead and start off with our nightmare here. And according to her stats, her perception is 4 spaces. So from there, we're going to count out a number of spaces using the shortest path to our characters. So first space, second space, third space, fourth space. So she can perceive our characters. So then there's a set of guidelines that she's going to follow if she can perceive a character. First off, it will move towards him by the shortest path. If multiple paths, it will choose the one that contains the least obstacles. If still tied, then the players get to choose the path. If multiple characters are equal distance, it will move towards the space which contains the highest number of characters. If tied, then it will move towards the slowest, and if still tied, then it will move towards the one that has the least will. Allies are considered slower than characters, so if a creature has a character and an ally at the same distance, it will always attack the ally. Creatures will always take the shortest route, even if it contains traps or barricades. And when a creature attacks a character, the creature's turn will end. So now that we know that our nightmare has the perception to our characters, we're going to go ahead and finish her turn by moving her towards those characters by the shortest path. So first off, we're going to check her movements, which is a 4, so she can move up to 4 spaces. And again, she's going to use the shortest path, so she's going to move 1 space here, 2 spaces. She's going to use an action to open the door, because she can't go through it. And then her final action is to move in here, so she can actually make it to the characters. At this point, then we move on to the next creature, which, of course, there's another nightmare out there, so we have to activate her next. And again, we'll check perception. So her perception is a 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So she cannot perceive the characters, so at that point, she's going to follow a different set of guidelines. A creature will move to the map tile with characters and where there is the most activity, always using the shortest path, and if tied, will go towards the tile with the most characters. If still tied, the character with the least agility. In order to check activity, activity is the sum of characters and creatures on a map tile. Characters count as 2 points, and creatures and allies count as 1. Bosses do not count as activity. So let's go ahead and check the activity on this tile here. So again, our boss counts as 0. We have 1 creature, which is worth 1 point, and 2 characters, and each character is worth 2 points. So the activity on this tile is 5 points. And none of our other tiles have any characters, so we don't need to worry about counting the activity for those. So at this point, if a creature is already on the tile with the most activity, it will move to the nearest character, even if it does not perceive it. If tied, the slowest. So this tile does not have any activity, so the creature is going to move towards this tile here, using the shortest path with her movement value, which is 4. So she's going to move 1, 2, 3, and through the door for 4. At that point, she is done with her movement and does not have a character in range, so her turn is over. Moving over to our last creature here, the Arcane, or the Demon, has a perception of 2 spaces, so he is obviously not going to perceive anybody, and his movement is 3. So he's going to move by the shortest path towards our characters. So again, there is no way through this house as the windows are closed at this point, so he's going to have to go around. So his first movement is 1, 2, and 3. At this point, we've activated all of our monsters, so then we're going to move on to bosses. So now that we've finished moving all of the creatures, the next thing we would do is move any bad allies, which we don't have any at the moment, so finally we're going to move into bosses. So bosses are not considered creatures, so they do not follow the effects of any card or rule in which there is a reference to creatures. Bosses cannot be destroyed unless a scenario says otherwise, and bosses have no perception value. They always move towards the closest character and in ties the slowest. And they each have their own set of special rules. So you can find those on page 19, and as you guys can see here, let's go ahead and take a look at the two bosses that we have on this map. So the first one is the Sharknator. Its mobility is 0, so it's never going to move, and anyways it is all boxed in with all white lines, so it cannot move even if it wanted to. And finally, it has a Furious 7, so this thing is going to pack one heck of a punch when it attacks. And the worst part about it is its skill, which says that it attacks all characters on its map tile. So even though it's boxed into this space, it can hit any character that is anywhere on this map tile. So when we move into there, we have to go quick and hopefully get out of there before we get totally killed by this nasty Sharknator. And then finally, we have the Dimensional God, which has a mobility of 1, so it's going to move 1 space each turn. It's going to break through doors on its way without losing mobility points, and it is immune to traps and barricades, so it's just going to continue to bash through everything on its way. And finally, its skill is that it kills all characters in its space. So with the Dimensional God, now that it's its turn to activate, and our characters made a huge mistake by not moving, obviously, because we're not really playing, the Dimensional God is going to move into this space and break through this door, so we'll put a broken token there, and then it would kill those characters instantly, and so they would both have to suffer the death effects that we've already covered. So the last thing I need to go into during the creature's movement is how the effects of stunning a creature work. So when a creature activates a trap or hits a barricade, it is stunned and will end its turn immediately. Set the mini on its side. A stunned creature is vulnerable. When attacked, add an additional d6 of damage to that creature. So let's look at a couple examples of this. So with our 2 nightmares here, they moved last turn as we saw how that worked. Well, let's go ahead and say, for example, that before they moved, during our character's turn, they were able to set a trap and they put up a barricade. So that'll replace that token. So when our first nightmare activated, you remember she went through this door here, which you're always going to go through the shortest route, and so she is going to go through the barricade. So when she hits the barricade, it will be destroyed, and a broken token or a broken door token will be placed, but then she is going to be placed on her side, and she will be stunned for the rest of this turn. And so she won't be able to activate again until her following creature turn. And then our second nightmare, we remember, made it through the doorway and ended here, which would have triggered the trap, and so at that point, then she would also be stunned. So during the character's next activation, if they moved in there and attacked those creatures, they would get additional d6 of damage added to that attack, if the attack was successful. Let's move over to see how creature attacks work now. So if a creature is in the same space as one or more characters, it will attack them all. Each character will then get to defend itself, starting with the lowest agility value first. When a creature attacks one or more characters, if its terror value is greater than the character's then the character's fear bar will be increased by 1 point. All creatures have a fury value, which is the total damage they will do when attacking. So let's take a look at an example of this. We have the nightmare here, and let's go ahead and say, for example, that she had enough movement points to move into the space with our characters. So at this point, she's going to go ahead and attack our characters, and her fury value is 4, so that means she's going to do 4 damage to each one of our characters. At this point, our characters are going to get to make their defensive roll, so with the character's defense, players can defend themselves from attacks damage by rolling combat dice equal to their defensive value. Each hit rolled will cancel 1 damage done, and when defending, you can use any equipped card which adds defense. Any roll of more than 1 die, which results in 100% success, is considered a critical and is going to add 1 extra hit to the total defense. So our hero here has the lowest agility, so we're going to start with him. So his defense is 4. Plus we're going to check, and he doesn't have any equipment or anything, but we're also going to check skill trees or anything like that that would give him extra defense. At this point, he doesn't have any, so he's going to go ahead and roll the 4 dice and see what happens. So he stopped 2 damage as he had 2 successes, so he'll take 2. And then we're going to go ahead and check his will versus our enemies, our creatures' terror. So the terror on the nightmares is 6. So it is higher than our will, so our player will take 1 point of fear damage. Then we're going to move over to the huntress. Her agility is the next one up. And so she also has 4 dice, but she doesn't have anything else, so she's going to go ahead and roll those. And she stopped 3, and she gets to re-roll 1 die per roll. So we'll roll again. And she got all successes. It's 100%, so she would receive an additional hit result on there. So she would stop 5 points of damage, but our creature only does 4, so she doesn't take any damage. And then we'll check her will, which is a 3, which again is lower than the creature's terror of 6, so she will also move up 1 point on her fear track. So at that point, that creature's attack is done, and we would proceed to the next creature. Alright guys, so we're almost done here. We have a couple more things to cover real quick. Now that we've gone through both the character's turn and the creature's turn, we're going to go over the last couple effects in the game, which the first is night rounds, which are going to be indicated by the blue marks on the round tracker. So rounds 3 through 7 are all considered night rounds. So night rounds are going to work the same way as day rounds, except for the following. During a night round, the whole board is considered to be in darkness. If you're playing a semi-cooperative game, then the evil one will roll the evil die 1 time at the start of each night round. Otherwise, if you're playing a fully cooperative game, then just choose 1 player to roll the evil die, which normally would be the D6 die, and you'll consult the chart here as you guys can see. Or if you guys are Kickstarter backers and you happen to have the Kickstarter evil dice, then you can go ahead and give one of those the roll, and it'll work the same way. From there then, when a character is in a dark space, his fear bar is going to be increased by 1 space at the beginning of his turn. And again, all spaces are dark in night rounds except for those a character has equipped with a light-giving object or weapon. In the first night round, remove all explore tokens from the board. So then you can recheck all those spaces again during after the first night round. So as you guys can see, night rounds can be really devastating to our characters. So now let's go ahead and talk about the generator. First off, the generator is a single-use item, so it can only be used once per game. And any player in the generator space can use 1 action to try to turn it on by rolling a d6 and placing the token in the corresponding place on the track. Now, if a player rolls a 6, then a creature is going to appear in the same space as the generator, and it will not turn on. The player can spend another action to try again. If a 1 is rolled, it is also considered a fail, but players can also continue spending actions in the same way to try again. At the start of each subsequent round after the generator has been turned on, its energy token is going to move down 1 space. If it hits the 1, then the generator is going to turn off again, plunging the players back into darkness. The entire board is going to be considered illuminated when the generator is on. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example of this. We're going to go ahead and say that our huntress here is in the same space as the generator, and she's going to go ahead and spend 1 of her actions to roll the d6 and see what we get. So she rolls a 2, so we're going to move the token to the 2 space. Not a really good roll. It's only going to buy us 1 round, but even 1 round will help us out a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and say that we're about ready to move from 3 to 4, so at that point we would move back down, and that would plunge the entire board back into darkness, and our players would continue to have to resolve any effects for darkness rounds. Well, I hope you guys found this video helpful. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And thank you guys so much for continuing to watch my videos. I do appreciate all the support and feedback that you guys have given me. And as always, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel, as it will help me to continue to grow and continue to bring new and exciting games to you guys. And if you guys want to swing by the Facebook and Twitter accounts that I have as well, please leave me some comments there, or let me know what you guys are doing, if this is a game that you guys have played or have picked up, or how your guys' games are going, or games that you guys think I should be covering. Please leave those in the comments below, or hit me up on one of my other accounts and let me know there. And as always, I will see you guys later.